So thank you all again for joining us. We really appreciate it. You joining us this evening for a talk with Jose Daniel Benitez of Mobile Print Power. So I'm just to introduce myself. My name is Robin Sharon, and I'm one of Manhattan Graphic Center's management team, and I'm also joined by one of my other colleagues, Kay Sarantonio. We're both on the team. This is our fourth talk of the year and our first talk of our fall term. We do have others programmed, so be sure to visit our website at manhattangraphiccenter.org so you can register for them. And while you're there, you'll be able to sign up for our mailing list and see our other events and course offerings. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. If you're not familiar with our organization, Manhattan Graphic Center is a community print shop that supports the learning and practice of fine art printmaking. We provide an affordable, inclusive, professional studio and exhibition space. Plus, we offer classes and other public programs, including artist talks like this one. We also offer scholarships. Manhattan Graphic Center would like to thank the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the New York State Council of the Arts, our members, and our other donors and friends, all who make our artist talks and other programming possible. So we're very excited to welcome Jose. And just so you know, we will be doing a Q&A after his presentation. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat you see at the bottom of your screen. Jose Daniel Benitez is a multimedia artist and activist who holds an MA in Media Studies from the New School and a BA in Graphic Design from Baruch College. His work spans participatory art, video installations, photography, and silkscreen printing, exploring the intersectionality of identity and struggles. He is well known for being a core member of the Mobile Power Print, MPP, since 2016. MPP is a dynamic and multi-generation artistic collective rooted in New York City's diverse cultural tapestry. Founded in 2013, MPP originated as a weekly printmaking and political education workshop at Immigrant Movement International in Corona, Queens. Over time, it evolved into a true collective with participants like Jose Daniel Benitez actively contributing to its growth and impact. Benitez plays a pivotal role in spearheading events and collaborations that resonate with the collective's mission. His artistic vision is deeply intertwined with the values of MPP, where he harnesses the power of collective action to promote social and cultural awareness. Through his creative leadership and passion for social justice, Jose has helped MPP amplify its impact within communities, fostering meaningful connections and inspiring positive change. And with that introduction, I will now hand things over to Jose.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let me know if you can see it. One second. Yep. Y'all can see it?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can see that. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Jose Benitez from Print Power. A little introduction about me. You kind of mentioned it already. I'm a media studies from New School, BA in graphic design, and I've been an active member of Print Power since 2016. The collective started in 2013, and we're still ongoing, doing public workshops around Queens and New York City. So what is Mobile Print Power? We are a multi-generational collective, primarily based in Corona, Queens, at Centro Corona, which is a nonprofit that houses collectives, workshop spaces for dance and art that are politically educated. What we often do is we transport our portable silkscreen printing cart. You can see that in the photo there. It kind of looks like a hot dog cart or an ice cream cart. And we go into public spaces, primarily public parks, public plazas, and we engage the community with art making. And what we often do is 2 to 3 hours, we will be in a public setting and do printing, interacting with members. And then with our interactions with members, we make a lot of our graphics, and these are the graphics we print when we're out in public. And it's just gonna be a quick little like slideshow of like designs we have made as collective throughout the years. 1 second. Here's the first one. We have, this one's based on our values. We have 8 core principles, which I'll talk about later. We value the skills, knowledge, and experience of all people, regardless of age and formal education. And we have people sharing ideas in the shape of light bulbs as their heads. A lot of our designs get pretty weird given the nature of them being generated through like collective work. And over here on the other right hand side, we have someone burning sage and trying to burn away negativity of machismo, racism, and sexism and homophobia. We got one graphic, more soul, less soul, and we have strong communities with the bees and honeycombs. And over here, we have 3 more graphics based on our 8 principles, which I'll talk more about. We engage ourselves to the task at hand. We want equality across the gender spectrum. We oppose sexism. And then we believe in the power of collective work. And one of the main things, as we mentioned earlier, it started as a political education weekly workshop, but throughout consistently meeting each other, getting along, and doing collective printmaking, we kind of evolved into collective. And one of the key points involving this collective for ourselves was identifying as a group what were our core principles as a way to define how we navigate ourselves in our work and our art. And we as a collective sat down and studied the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, and their set of principles and guidelines, and decided to draft our first 8 principles in 2016, 2015. And over here, we have all 8 principles in English and Spanish. Something we usually do as a collective is we try to incorporate both English and Spanish, because we're predominantly in front of Queens, which is a immigrant community that mostly speaks Spanish. So for a lot of our words and designs and artworks to really come across our community, language justice is very important for us. And I'm gonna talk a little more about our methodology and how we conduct our workshops in public spaces and areas. So as I mentioned before, we kind of set up like drawing stations in public settings. We bring out booklets, crayons, newspapers, paper, markers for people to draw and to engage with us. We encourage everyone to make art, kids, parents, adults, young teenagers. We see this as not just like a kid activity, but anyone can participate with us. And usually some people feel intimidating drawing, so they do write their answers. In our experience, kids are usually the ones that love to draw the most, and a lot of our designs and graphics are predominantly based on the drawings the kids provide us, because they're the ones that draw the most. So that kind of explains the weird look of our designs. That's not right. 1 second. Okay. Sorry, I messed up there. So as the photos I mentioned before, we have booklets. So what we're doing with the public settings, we don't just print a graphic for people, we have it be a participatory exchange. So we asked our community members a series of questions depending on what topic we're tackling. And recently we've done a collaboration where we tackled the ideas of borders, who control borders, who benefit from them, how do they change the land we live in. So in order to participate with us, we ask people to respond in our booklets. And that's where people draw or do answers. And based on people's writings or ideas is how we make our graphics. So in the left corner, you'll see what someone actually drew in the booklet. And the right side, you'll see like the final finished work, in which we come back to the community like a week or 2 weeks later, depending how long it takes us to make the final graphics, and we bring those designs that people help generate and bring it back to your community and print it for them. And sometimes some designs are very one-to-one, like this one here. Other times we kind of collage multiple common themes and ideas into one final design. So it's all generated through this exchange of help us design this. We just do silkscreen printing. It's not just you're actively helping us build our designs, and we're fostering that like two-way communication. One second. Sorry. And then along with that, some recent past projects we have done. We have been a collective for over 10 years now. And we got presented the chance to retrospectively investigate ourselves as a collective for the past 10 years in this box set in partnership with Bookland. And they're like an independent distribution center for artists and artist books and like graphics and designs. So within this box that kind of is supposed to represent our dialogue as collective, our principles, but also be a mini exhibition in the box. And some of the questions within these box sets were, how did this work start? How does mobile print power make public art? Who are we? And do we like hanging out together? Which is very important questions to ask for a collective of 10 years. Like what's keeping this going? Why are we still doing this? What relationships have we built within each other, interpersonal, that we keep coming back to this? And beyond this work, do we hang out outside of it? It was like a very big question. We had to like analyze ourselves, and we mostly tackled this box set during the pandemic. So not meeting each other in person for roughly around 2 years, all through Zoom. We did start the work beforehand, but it got halted because of the pandemic, and that 2-year period really challenged us on how to make public art when social distancing, and what's that mean for our collective that's so based in taking up public space, physical space. How does that transform when it's digital? One other question is, what is our place in the art world? What is our place in the community? And that's tackling the idea of like being community facing. What do we bring to the community? How do we interact with them? But also, how is our community generated art viewed in the art world? And how can we tackle and battle art washing and our narrative and artwork being taken from us and changed in cultural institutions or museums, how they talk about us in our communities, and take more ownership of that. Citing our past work with communities, our past works with organizations, our past misgivings, past working with grassroots organizations, and really analyzing art washing and how that could take place in many different levels. And while not implicitly doing art washing, there are certain ways in which public programmings and also art installations benefit to art washing and gentrification and displacement, and how to navigate those conversations. And one of the other questions we had is, how do we approach exhibiting our work in galleries and institutions? And this primarily tackles being a collective. It's really hard to have ownership of your work or how it's presented, because the way our institutions, galleries like to navigate is there's usually one artist or like a duo. It's really hard to credit multiple people. And as mentioned earlier, a lot of our designs are publicly generated through what people leave in the booklet. So who really owns our designs? If I make a design based on what someone wrote in a book, it's a collaborative process. And some ways that we tackle this is offering free graphics on our website that people can download. We haven't updated it in a while, but it's very much so the people help generate these designs to give it back to people free of charge. They can download it. And our second to final question we asked ourselves in this box set was, are we activists? And this particularly pertained to us being politically led, political education focused, but also what role does art have in activism, grassroots organizing? How do we plug in and be more intentional of how we collaborate with groups? It's not just make one art project and bounce around to another issue. But how do we set roots and causes and relationships with other people organizing on the ground? And what's the best way for us to plug in and elevate their work? And our final one was, once again, we believe in the power of collaborative and collective work. And that's mostly pertaining to us being 6 to 8 people trying to manage ourselves as a group with like collective decision making, understanding the power behind that. Ooh, yes. And some past collaboration we had recently has been with Public Art Fund. And we collaborate with them with our discussions about borders and how they change in collaboration with their public art installation in Dumbo, Brooklyn. They had an artist, Nicholas Gallon, do a sculpture, and the sculpture is pictured right behind that photo. And it's made of the same material as the border wall in the US-Mexico border. And it's supposed to mimic and make fun of the sculpture that says love in Manhattan, talking about land, who owns land, what divides us from land, the same material in the border. So we collaborate with the artists and Public Art Fund to really tackle the issue of borders. How do they shift and change? Who benefits from them? And over here are some more examples of the final graphics we made in this collaboration. We had the opportunity to make these a 2-layer design. The pink layer, it's not the pink layer, but the questions in the design are reso printed. And so it's the text in the bottom. Beforehand, we reso printed them before going to our final public event. And then silk screen on top of them, the final designs of Un País. The drawing in the background all pink. This particular design was based on people's responses in Corona, Queens. And a lot of kids drew their own experiences of them crossing the border or their family members retelling them stories of border crossings. And the final one is No Fronteras, Sin Fronteras, Life Without Borders. At current projects, pictured here and in my background is us in Corona Plaza. Recently in the summer and the early fall, we had a series of public workshops in Corona Plaza on the weekends. We were able to fund this through a grant, a NIFA grant, and go monthly to this plaza and do art workshops. And it's been a while since we've been out in public, specifically Corona Plaza, since the pandemic. And a lot of dynamics had changed in the plaza recently, and trying to navigate how to do public art, what space public art have in the world now, specifically because of the policing of public spaces. Recently, Corona Plaza had been policed against street vendors, unlicensed street vendors, harassed by Department of Sanitation, cops, and in solidarity with them, we're trying to navigate how is the best way for us to work in the public space that's being policed, especially given that one of our motifs is a cart that looks like a vendor's cart. And currently, we want to plan to do more public workshops before it gets too cold outside. And we're potentially trying to plan more collaborations with other organizations to offer more public workshops. And I believe that's all I have. If anyone has any questions or wants me to go back on any slides.
Well, thanks so much for that, Jose. It was really interesting to learn about some of the things your organization is involved with. Um, um, So if folks do have questions, you can put it in the chat, or maybe since we're a small group, you can just unmute and ask, and maybe we can have a conversation. But one thing that I was thinking when you were talking about working with, community groups and kids is do you ever have any programs that go like into any of the schools, or is it just events that you plan independently of that?
Um, School-based, primarily not in public schools, but we have collaborative teen programs like Queens Teens. Also, we collaborate with youth leadership councils in programming of young high school teenagers in extra housing, collaborated with them, making designs and public programming. And not initially in schools, we usually cater events in public settings and also in cultural institutions like museums or nonprofits. And predominantly, the people that come are parents with their kids. That seems to be the way in which we're portrayed as art making with kids. But when parents do arrive, we make them join us and participate. And it is very funny to see a parent not read the event or a description and bring their kids to do a drawing. And we're asking a question about displacement. And one little girl drew in the book, she felt displaced when her younger brother was born. And the parents had to navigate that conversation with the girl. So we try to engage everyone at different levels
Mhm.
and explain to them how to participate, how to answer questions, and how to bring it to their common knowledge or what affects them in their daily life. Of course, the idea of displacement is different for a little kid. They're trying to explain, have you ever felt removed or like left out of a situation to explain displacement? That's kind of how we mostly work with children, not so much in public school settings.
Okay. So we have a question. I hope I don't mispronounce your name, but forgive me if I do. From Yelini Persaud. Great presentation. What's next for MPP? Where do you see the organization headed in the future?
Yeah, definitely. Where do I see head in the future? That's a great question because I've never asked myself that in the past 7 years I've joined. But I guess recently, since taking more of a spearheading events like position, I kind of do see ourselves trying to host more public events and more public spaces to refocus on gathering people, joining our collective, but also expanding what we do, having more manpower to do it to some extent, but also not just manpower, we're having funding to pay people to do this work because very often it is unpaid until recently. And this is the work that should be paid for. And we're predominantly, or 2016, we were mostly young adults and teenagers doing this in public settings. We had two older members, but the younger set of us were predominantly like New York City teenagers, young adults, people of color doing this work in this event just for the love of it, not particularly trying to like finding a way to be sustainable and also doing this, I guess, is where we're heading in the future, trying to navigate those conversations. How can we do this while also paying ourselves and doing it in a way where we're just not burning out?
Okay. And they said thank you so much. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask Jose? You can put it in the chat, or as I said, we're a small group, so you can unmute and just ask. Um, you know.
I've got a question.
Oh, okay, sure. This
Hi.
this is Lisa, our board president.
Hi, Jose. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us tonight. I'm interested to hear more about what happens between receiving the materials or the kind of inspiration or feedback from participants that are responding to the initial prompt, and then how does that get translated into the images that then later result, like what are those kinds of conversations like, and how are those responses kind of interpreted and then transformed to then become images of,
Definitely. Well, I guess what we do usually before we're mostly in person is after an event, like a week later, we'll meet in between the weekend or in between public workshops, review our booklets. Usually we have 3 to 5 booklets in every public event, and each of them contain a different question or similar questions. And we pair off in groups or individually, read through the books, kind of see common themes or motif of drawings or common responses of like how people respond to the question. And we use that as a launching off point to be like, this is a motif that's repeating. How do we incorporate it with this design? Because it seems to be the best way to represent the final outcome of people's responses to the books. And very often there are many designs that we don't make because there's so many good designs in the book. And usually after we find a motif or a common response, we kind of just start drawing random stuff. Like the first thing that comes in our head, we start drawing it. How do we display this idea and communicate it graphically through the art of like design and substance printing? What makes the most sense? And that's the hardest part, mostly because everyone thinks differently. These questions are so complex and nuanced. What's the best way to present it? It goes through many different iterations of like group share outs of like, okay, I see where you're going, but I don't understand why this is there, or elaborate on that. And from that point, we either continue individually or be like, okay, you seem to understand what I need for this design. Come collaborate with me in this design and make it make sense. And then beforehand, usually mostly hand drawn, drawing paper, inking it out with a pen or with a Sharpie. And then when the final design is ready, putting the film for a silk screen on top of it and like tracing it again and shading it with Sharpie. Many of our designs have been made by hand in that way. I know there's easier ways on the computer to print on film, but there's something didactic about retracing and drawing that leads to like happy mistakes or different forms of shading in the print that we enjoy. So that's kind of how we do it. But there's several like booklets that we still have on us. We like never throw them away. They're just in storage somewhere of people's responses throughout the 10 years. And it's a lot. I hope that answered the question.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Jose. Great presentation. I heard you talking about how some of the artwork comes out as weird, but really, I think that's the best part and solidifies the idea of the collective. So great job on that. My question is that I know that you mentioned a couple of public spaces that you guys have operated in, but if you could you just repeat through them or let us know a list of a few of them that you might have worked in already?
Yes. Sadly, I do not remember most of their names, but I do remember Corona Plaza in Corona Queens, Diversity Plaza in Jackson Heights, also various community gardens in Corona, and then also various cultural institutions like Queens Museum, so printing at Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, also printing at the Brooklyn Museum, printing at Interference Archive in Gowanus, printing in Uptown Bounce in the Manhattan, like the Museum Mile. There's too many places to list that are blanking me right now, but those are a few of the noteworthy ones I remember.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hopefully I make it to one of these events soon.
Where do you like if folks want to find out where you hold these events, like how like where can they follow you and get this information?
Okay, the best place to follow us is on Instagram, and it's M Print Power. And that's the best way to follow us because I'm the one that posts on Instagram. the upcoming events.
Okay. I think Kay, you wanted to.
Yeah, my question was just like, for those of us who like primarily print inside a studio, we can't control everything, but we can control a lot. And printing outdoors, there's just a lot more things that, you know, are going on. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit like how you respond to like it's suddenly pouring, or, you know, like some, you know, what unexpected stuff comes up, and how have you navigated that over time?
One of the major unexpected stuff that comes up is having access to a water source to clean screens when the paint dries. That's like the most important part you need. Some ways we have navigated this is we have like a big bucket, and then we just like bring a sponge and like paper towels and a spray bottle and a ton of gallons of water. And we would just be cleaning the screens in public, putting the screen in the bucket, cleaning up the gallon of water and the sponge, getting messy everywhere. That's one challenge of printing in public. You don't have the benefit of like a slosh sink in a studio. Another challenge is also paint drying a lot faster, especially when you're in the sun.
Mm.
It tends to dry really quickly in the screen, and you immediately have to wash it or your screen and designs are ruined for the rest of the event. On the flip side, it's prints never drying because it's too humid outside. There's a lot we can't control, but we try our best. And then of course, final one is once you get the screen printing, you kind of have to keep printing. Even if there's not that many people coming up to you anymore. If one person comes up and they want to design, you print it once, you give it to them, and you may have to wait 20 minutes till someone else comes for a print. But between those 20 minutes, you have to be constantly printing so the screen doesn't dry out. So we're left with a ton of we call them dollar prints. And they're just prints we printed ourselves at events.
It sounds challenging.
I'm
So-
kind of curious about the two parts of what you do. I see the performative element where you engage the public and provide an activity. And then because you've been around for 10 years, you say, and you talk about a kind of an archive, you create objects. And how, I really don't know how to pose it, but I just want your thoughts on it. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as being more performative? There's an engagement, then you leave, and that's it. Or do you see yourself in terms of identity more that yes, you engage the public and you create a particular product? You have objects that you've amassed over time, and then you use those presumably to give them out to the public or sell them to the public or present them to different institutions to enhance your identity and your purpose. So I'm just kind of curious how you see those two splits.
Yeah, definitely, I do believe the split's there. And it's always contradiction and conflict we must navigate through throughout 10 years. I do see it there. We also participate with archives a lot, and there's a point where we also see ourselves as archivists because we amass a collection of books and objects of people's sentimental responses to questions and answers of sensitive topics. And the way in which they engage with it very often feels like the public and people are more willing to share something deep in their thoughts when they just leave it in a book and don't attach their name on it. So in some of our deeper hitting questions, there are some responses which are very, very like sentimental and trying to like hold that and keep that, and also how do we use that. But there is the performance aspect of like engaging with community. And I guess that's where we have to tackle the idea of art washing. How do we present ourselves? Who are we collaborating with? where is the money coming from, who's controlling the event, how does that plug in with us and our political beliefs. But I do believe that the performativity or that engagement is needed for that two-channel conversation, because very often we're not just printing or having these conversations with people in English and Spanish. Primarily these communities engaging with them topics of displacement, gentrification, also social justice, sexism, bullying, and all these topics, and trying to meet them at their level of like, how do we communicate these ideas? What do people think about these ideas? How do they navigate it? I do feel like that two-way performativity that engages that conversation is needed, because if not, I would feel like it would just be too static, our involvement of, it'll be more performativity in my sense if we just have them answer a question in the book and not really engage with them in conversations or try to navigate deeper conversations. Recently, particularly with our series about the border, one thing we've recently met is a lot of people in community. Well, some might not speak English or write English. Some might just speak Spanish. Some might also not be able to write Spanish, but they want to get involved and leave their like answers in the book. We had like our collaborator for Public Art Fund. She's bilingual, fully bilingual. She transcribed the responses in the book and spent like 20 minutes with them just talking, transcribing what they were saying to have their stories told and archived about their ideas of the border crossing, what they think about it. And I do feel like in that aspect, it's more engagement than performativity in some sense. They do go hand in hand, but it's how do we navigate having to balance both? And on the topic of like collecting these works for science institutions, we usually try to make it a point where if you come to our events, you get anything printed for free. If you bring your own shirt, we'll print on your shirt. We provide paper, but you want fancier paper, you could bring it with you. We try to leave most of our graphics for free on our website. Currently, our box set is for sale on Booklyn, but we're also working on doing like a digital asset and just having it on our website for free for people to navigate. And we very rarely sell our work, except for this box set. But the aspect of like ownership is also very interesting because with Grand Collective, it did start with one member, Patrick Rowe. He was the older one of the collective, around 30, white man, cis. And the way in which our work's presented sometimes is through Patrick Rowe and like more print power kids because we were younger. So within our own collective, the topic of ownership is also like who's being showcased in our collective in these institutions, or just be Patrick Rowe and more print power. But why are they presenting a white cis man first? You know, he's part of the collective. Like there's that, even within our own group, the idea of ownership. And we also have those conversations of like, if we make a design generated by the booklets, do I write my name attached to it because I designed it, or do I leave it like nameless because yes, I designed it, but it's not my idea or I just like reinterpreted the design. I hope that answers your question.
Anyone else, or Jay, I don't know if you have a follow-up, or does anyone else want to ask Jose anything?
Well, just
other
as a
questions?
follow-up, I thank you. It's a very full explanation. It does raise that element again of people that participate in, creating an image. And I mean, just getting down, I like the idea about we all contribute and it's all something that we all made, but there's the reverse side of that where it can get very sticky, where someone wants, no, that's mine. So it's a question of what's mine and what's ours, and how you deal with that whole thing.
Okay, anyone else would like to ask Jose something? No, I guess not. So for those of you that are interested, if you go to the chat, Jose entered the handle for Print Power's Instagram account, so you can copy it from there and follow them so you can keep up to date with their events. So Jose, thank you very much. This was a great talk and a great conversation. It's been really interesting to learn about your organization. Just as a reminder to everyone, please visit our website at manhattangraphiccenter.org. You'll also be able to sign up for future talks, see our other events and classes, and join our mailing list. You can follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook to keep up to date. And as I said, this talk is being recorded and it will be posted soon to our YouTube channel. Also, one last thing, if you're in our neighborhood, we currently have a really great exhibit up in our gallery space. It's a 2023 Manhattan Graphic Center National Print Exhibition, juried by Miguel A. Aragon, and it's on view during our open hours through November 18th, 2023. And with that, I will thank everyone for attending. Thank you, Jose, and everyone have a great night.